Alright, so hello everyone. So today we will um trying to complete the week 6 homework, which is the weather dashboard, and this is how it look like. So we have a header, a search bar, a sidebar that have a search information here, and this is kind of a, like search history-ish. So this is what we're gonna do. So let's start very simple. I'm gonna open this code. Actually, I will create a repo on GitHub first. So new weather dashboard with 6. But public readme. Right. Then let's clone this one down. See I'm there. But let's wait for it to be on. City working. Right. So we're gonna clone that, and there should be nothing in it except for the readme file. Right. So let's open it and let's start. Alright, so create a symbol HTML, and let's run it and see how it works. Explorer. Alright, so we have the file. Now let's build the HTML, right? So the very basic part. So the header, the side menu, um, the main contain. So we're gonna do that. So header, which is my weather dashboard, and I'm gonna put this an ID because we're gonna have only one header here, and we're gonna have a sidebar, and we're gonna have a main contain. Right, so inside the sidebar we have a text search for a city, a text box, a button, and the list of what we have searched, right? So def ID with sidebar title. Actually, not sidebar title. So search. Actually, sidebar title is fine. So search for a city. Right. Then we have an input, and we have an icon. Right. So for now, let's just have a simple search. Right. In the main contain, we have two parts. Right. We have the current details and the 5-day forecast, which I think current condition. Right. Current condition and 5-day forecast. So current condition and 5 days forecast. Alright, so in here we're gonna have something very simple. We're gonna have Atlanta, we have the date. So for now, let's just put everything, like just hard coded it so we can start it first. So we know that this thing needs to be in a field, so we're gonna have an H1 right there with Atlanta. A date, so today is 7 of 11 2019, and in here, because I know this thing gonna change, so I'm gonna make a span here to be city name, and in here, because I know this thing is might also change, so I'm gonna have this in today. Doesn't work that. Okay. Alright, so I'm gonna have that. Right, and the as an image. So we're gonna have an image right here, which we don't actually have anything, so we're just gonna put a placeholder in it. I think that's gonna be 30. So this is the weather icon. Right. So temperature, humidity, wind speed, and UV index, right? Right. So temperature, that's wrong. Temperature, temperature, temper. Right. And we have temper, current temper. Right, and this is gonna be 38 something. And we're gonna have here is humidity, wind speed, and UV index. Wind speed. Alright. So current temperature, current humidity, current wind speed, and current UV index. Cool. Alright, so we got this done. Now let's do the weather, the 5-day forecast. Right, so this is here. So we're gonna have a title here, and we have some block. So because this block is duplicated, so we're just gonna do one block. Again, this is only for styling, and we're not gonna do anything from this point. Right, so we have 5 days forecast, and we're gonna do this block. So I'm gonna have a forecast container here, and in here I'm gonna have one forecast. So I'm just gonna put a weather forecast, and this one div represent this one block. So in here we have some image, sorry, some text, some dates first, right? So that should be an x2 something, and we have a date here. So I'm just gonna put this. We can have an image, so I'm gonna copy this down. We have a temperature and humidity, right? So def temp, I'm gonna do 38 for now. Copy that, and I'm gonna do humidity, and also like 30 something, 43%. Right, so this is our index, right? So let's save it and run it and see how bad it look like. Cool, look very bad. I'm just gonna change the title quickly. So my weather fog dashboard. Right, so to change that. Right, now let's start it. So our header, so it's already doing that, so I'm gonna add some padding to be 40 pixel. Right, I'm gonna have background color to be black, color to be white, font size to be XS large, font weight to be bold, and I'm gonna do a text align to be center. Right, so that's gonna be in for my header. So let's create a CSS for that. So I'm gonna put it underneath assets, CSS, and styles.css. Put this in for header, and I'm gonna link it here. Right, alright, so Make sure that does. Now let's do the middle part, right? So the sidebar and the main content, right? So they need to be on the same line. Like the sidebar needs to be here, main content needs to be here. So I'm just gonna quickly change this to add a wrapper around it called page contain. Because I'm gonna use flexbox, so they need a wrapper around them. So I'm gonna put all of it inside here. Right. So page contain, I'm gonna have display as flex, and see how now immediately they go side by side, right? So flex direction to be row, and that should be good. My main contain, now see how it being wrapped like that, the width only that, but I don't want it. I don't want it to be full size. So I'm gonna have this to be flex row to be that. So now it's become full size. Okay. So is there any styling that they want me to do? There's some small background color here, so I'm gonna add it in. So I'm gonna have a background color to be light gray. Right, some padding. Let's say 20 pixel. That looks okay-ish to me. I'm just gonna remove that for now. Yep. Okay. And I want this to be full size. So what I can do is I can make this body to be display flex, but flex direction to be column. And I can use on this, I can use flex row to be 999. Oh, but the body doesn't show. Okay, so body need a width, height of 100 ph with no margin. Alright, so that's my body. Normally I don't prefer doing this, but because we are doing a very small project, so I'm okay with doing this just for this project. If I'm doing this correctly, I'm gonna add another wrapper around my header and page contain. Maybe something like container, something like that, and add the styling in it instead. I don't prefer changing the style, adding style to body. Right, so page contain. Right, sidebar we have this, and main content we just have that. Sidebar. Oh, sidebar. Right, so that's doing that. This thing needs some padding around it. So padding, I think 20 pixel too. And there's some spacing on top of this. Huh, there's some spacings right here. Oh, because it's an H1, so there's spacing right there. Okay, it doesn't look that great. Alright, so we're gonna fix that later. So padding here. Then our current condition, there's like a border around it. So let's add a border. So border solid 10 black. And you can see there's a curve right there, and you can do that by using border radius. So border radius of 6 pixel, or around that would be fine. Just see how it curved now. And I'm just gonna use light gray in here. That, and this thing will need some padding, of course. So padding, saying 20 pixel would be okay. Alright, then I'm just gonna remove this H1. I don't want you to have any margin. Actually, I don't want you to have any margin top. Margin bottom is fine to have. Alright, so I'm just gonna add that styling in. some main contain some padding. That's the current condition. And I'm just gonna add this margin top to make it not look very ugly. Alright, you can ignore the icon a bit because we're gonna change it later on anyway. Okay, so the temperature. Okay, there should be a span. See how if I have a diff, it go to a new line. But if I do a span here, that go on the same line. The reason because the span by default run something called display inline, right? And diff on the other hand is doing display block. So when you do display block, it's basically trying to take the whole line, while display inline is like again display inline, right? The only problem with display inline is that you cannot control the size of it, meaning something like this. So I have a background color of saying red. See how it's only contain my text, but I'm saying yeah, but I want some padding around it, right? So you can do padding 20 pixel. Actually, sorry, my bad. It does work. Padding? No, sorry, not padding. I mean with yeah. And see how it doesn't change at all. Padding does work. Yeah. See how you cannot control the size, the width of this at all, right? So that's the only thing that display inline doesn't allow you to do. One way to get around it is that you can actually use display inline block. So it's like a combination between the two of them. So you can be inline and you can also control the dimension of it. I mean the width and the height. So you do that by saying display inline block, and suddenly you have that. Right? So it's on inline, but you can control the size of it. Yeah, that's just some quick thing that I need to fix in here. Alright, so span here and span here. Alright. Okay, so that's look okay. We just gonna have some spacing between them. Alright, alright. So you can have in here. What's what's a good way to do this? Let's teach you guys a trick on how to select this. Alright, so in here what we have, we can. So my goal now is to create some padding between this, right? So I want to add some padding into this diff, right? So one way I can do it is I can select them by saying current condition, then select all the diffs in it, and I say padding. Actually, I'm gonna do margin bottom to be 20 pixel, right? Actually, margin all of it. So margin top to be 20 pixel, right? But you can easily see how. So it's working, right? But if you look at the last one, right? So it's creates some empty spacing in here, right? And you don't want that. So the goal is to add the margin to everything, but not the last, right? So how can you do it? How can you select everything and not select the last diff in this case, right? So there's multiple ways to do it, but what I usually do is I'm going to use something we call in the selector. I think it's called pseudo selector, but not the one that you guys have been using. So I'm going to use in here something called not and last child. So let's go one by one, right? So let's explain what last child is. So let's try it. If I select last child, you're gonna suddenly see that I can only select the last child in this container, which is this div, right? So that's how last child works. Last child selector. That's how it works, right? And not is what? Not is just English, right? The opposite way around. So when I'm saying I want to select all the div and not the last one, what I can do is I can do all the div, but not wrong one. Okay, all the divs, but not the last child. And if I hit enter, now this, see how this select everything except for the last one. So this div doesn't have any margin, and all of this now have a margin. So that's how you do it. You select everything, and you say select everything, but not the last child. And if you search Google, this is how you search: CSS selector last child. And there's a bunch of things that will tell you about it, but usually I just go to W3 School, and they explain quite clearly what it does and what is the similar. So there is last child. There's also last of type, nth of type, nth child. So there's a bunch of them. So you have a look around. Okay? But anyway, let's go back to what we're doing. So I'm just gonna copy this whole thing into our CSS. Right. So we're having that. Cool. And I'm gonna do exactly the same here, which is weather forecast. So I'm gonna copy this. And it should do the same thing. It doesn't. Oh, this is a class. Okay, so it's a class. Right, cool. Now let's start doing the real thing. Actually, there is also that blue background, so let's add that blue background thing. So this is my container, and because I want to have all of them on the same line, actually let's have two of them so that I can demonstrate it. So I have this and I have another one. And if I refresh this, it's gonna be top and bottom, but I don't want that, so I want it on the same side, same line. So I'm gonna have this of display flex on column. That's good. Flex direction to be column. Sorry, not column, rows. And I have it on the size. And for each of this, I want to add some padding around it to make it look nicer. 20 is enough. Yeah, I think 20 is enough. I'm gonna have some margin to right. So, and some background color to be light blue. And we're gonna just have it, make it round up a bit. So, border radius. Remember that you can even use border radius even though you don't actually have a border, okay? It still works. So this is forecast, right, for weather forecast. And we're gonna have another one for forecast container. Cool. Right. So now, can I just quickly fix the placeholder problem because it's annoying me a bit. I think I'm missing the API bit. Nope. Oh, via. Alright, there you go. I got that kind of icon edge. Alright, so let's start. So the task asking us to put in a CC. I'm sure you haven't searched it, but I'm just gonna make this a button so that we can work on our real thing before we can go back and styling this. Alright, so we're gonna do a search here. We click on it, and then it's gonna get us the data. Right, so now let's just do a quick thing. When we click on this search button, let's get the data, whatever we have been searched, whatever we want to search. Alright, so we're gonna put an ID here. And we're gonna create a JavaScript. Let's see. Sets JS script script.js. Alright. I'm gonna link it here. Alright, so just button, click. Yeah, so I haven't include jQuery, so I'm gonna go and include my jQuery CDN. And I'm just gonna copy this in. Okay. So when I do this, I'm gonna get whatever inside this input. Right, so we're talking about this input, which is this input. Right, so cc search input. So we're gonna get that out. Search value would be dot value, and we're just gonna console log that out real quick. So I want to search for Melbourne and Melbourne. Right, so when I click enter, now you guys cannot see it for sure, but I'm hitting enter, but it doesn't run it. So it's okay, but for the user experience, I think it's a bit annoying. So I'm just gonna quickly change it and to allow it to when I click enter, it's gonna do it. So the way I'm gonna do it is I'm gonna say when I hit enter, I'm gonna make the search button to trigger the click event. Right, so it's have many way of doing it. So I either have like something like this, right? On key down. I think key down is the function. Right, so you can have here, you can say do the same thing as click button. Right, so this is one way of doing it, and you can do it by maybe move the logic in the click function into another external function, then refer that function into both of the event listener. So that's one way for you to do it, but I'm just gonna do it this way. I'm gonna say, so when this on key down, and I think this thing is wrong, but I'm just gonna double check later. So when I have a hit an enter button, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna ask the search button to trigger click event. That's what I'm gonna ask, and this is what I'm gonna do. And by doing this, when this event trigger, it's basically gonna trigger this event, and then it's gonna run whatever in here, right? So let's do it. So Let's quickly check the function because I think that's wrong. jQuery key down. Okay, key down is no cap. Alright, jQuery key down. Check for enter. Bum, 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 bum. Again, remember you don't always have to remember this, right? So, like, just if you don't remember, just Google it and then just basically copy the code. Alright, so if event.which equal 13. So because I look at the code here, I'm just gonna refer it in my code. So reference would be this. I'm gonna add in 13 is enter key code. Then I'm just gonna add this to trigger, right? So what I can do is I can run this and I call trigger. And if you guys have no idea what this function do, what you can do is go to jQuery and search for it. And that is what it is. So execute all handler and behavior attached to the match element for the given event type. So it basically asks this search button to trigger everything that related to click event, which is this. So let's try it out. So refresh. I search for Melbourne, right, and see nothing show up here because I didn't hit any enter. I click search, show up Melbourne, click search, show up Melbourne. Now if I hit enter, it also show Melbourne, right? See how it, now I hit enter again, it show Melbourne. So what I can do now is like I hit Sydney, I hit enter, and it show me that, so I don't have to click search. So just one small tips right there. Yeah, now let's go to the main part. So what we should do is we need to call onto an over weather API to retrieve weather data for city. Okay, so let's open it. So I want to know current weather, right? So this should be my API, and I want C degree. Alright, so this is an API call, as simple as that. So let's put it in. Alright, so how do you do it? So again, the way we send a request is using Ajax. Okay, and in Ajax, I believe, let's go back and check because I'm not totally sure. So Ajax, you need to have at least the URL. You need to have a URL and you need to have the action method. Yeah, so you need to have a URL and a method, and the default method is get. Right, so URL is our URL, which is that. And that, and method is get. I think this required me to put in my API too, so I'm just gonna quickly sign in here. Cool. Right. So update weather 2. That's not what I'm looking at. API keys. Right, so I'm just gonna copy this, and what you can do is, if you read a bit more, I think it will tell you how to do it. API. Alright, so Okay, so what I'm trying to look for is how to actually use this. Alright, structure API guide. Okay, process, I done that. I do API. Okay, so I need an app ID. Okay, so n app ID. App ID. Right, so I'm just gonna put my app ID here as a constant on top so I can reuse it later on. So I'm gonna replace this with a tick, and you can use app ID here. And my CT name is basically my search value, right? So search value. Okay, so that should give me something, which I have no idea what it's gonna give me, but let's try it. So then, function that have access to the response. Okay, now just quickly console log the response. Let's try what the API give me. Sydney, actually do Melbourne. Hit enter, and see how in network I can see that the API actually is running, sending. Right, and I got some data. So let's open the data. So data have, so coordinate of it, some information. I can open main and I have humidity, I have pressure, I have temperature, which I think is what we have in here. And I can see that this number is absolutely high, and unless this is not in Celsius, or else I'm gonna be die right now. So what is this? So I think this is in F, and can we change it on the API level? So can we ask it to see how you can change it here? So I'm wondering, can you also change it in the API level? So let's have a look. So unit format seems like it. Okay, so standard metric and imperial. So temperature is available in Fahrenheit, Celsius, or Kelvin unit. So for all the Fahrenheit user is to use that. So if I want my temperature in Celsius, I can use unit equal metrics. So I'm gonna do that also that in Kelvin by default. So it's in K. I have no idea what K is. I know what C is. So I want to use units. Right. So unit, and hopefully now the temperature is making more sense. Melbourne temperature. Is it the correct temperature right now? I would think it is. Hopefully. Right. So now let's add it in. So we have humidity, we have temperature, we have wind speed. Where's wind speed? How can I get wind speed? Wind. Okay, wind speed 4.1. Alright. So you guys see, so this is the response, right? So what we can do is we can do temperature equal response.main.temp. Right? You can do humidity equal response.main.humidity. And wind speed is 4.1, so wind speed for response dot wind dot speed. Alright, you guys can do this, but see how this is response repetitive. So what you can do in this case is what we call an object is constructing. Right? I think later on you guys learn about it, but there's no harm in learning it beforehand. So if you Google it, you're gonna find something called this. So JavaScript object these construct. Right? So you guys can read about that, but I will show you an example. So quickly, we're gonna stop right here, and we're gonna say, so I'm gonna search in Melbourne. Now my response is that, right? So what you can do is something look cool like this. So you are deconstructing an object, right? And because this is an object, you can do main. Actually, I should call it var main equal response, right? Just like that. So what do you think is going to happen? The thing is going to happen is, if I hit enter now, my main now become this, right? Just this alone. So instead of you have to do var main equal response dot main, what you can do is just this, that line, that line, it's just that, and it equivalent to this. But it's not the whole thing, right? You can go even deeper than that. So what you can do is you say, but I don't care about main, right? You don't care about that. You care about temperature. You care about humidity. So what you can do is you can do more. You can say, now I access the key of main, but what I care here is temperature and humidity, right? And if you hit enter now, you will have temp and you have humidity. It's just that. You don't care about anything else. You just care about temp and humidity, and you're saying go inside the main, get me the temp and get me the humidity, right? And I can do the same thing with wind. Wind speed. So I can do var. So I can do the same thing, right? So main, and now we access the different keys. So we're gonna access wind, and I'm gonna access speed. Right, so now I have temp, I have humidity, I have speed. All of that in one line. So, and this is called object deconstructing. And you can learn about this here. It's a bit new for me to actually even using it. So if you ever have to support like Internet Explorer, this thing will not run. But again, like I honestly don't know if anyone's still supporting it. But in the case that you guys actually supporting it, then this will not run. But for anything that modern, this line should be what you go for whenever you're trying to access data from the object. So let's try this into our code, right? So const, I'm gonna access main, and inside main I want temp and I want humidity, and outside of it I want to access in wind, and in wind I want to access speed, right? And all this is equal to response. And now let's try to console log it. So I'm gonna console log temp, humidity, and speed. Right, so let's try again. Refresh, search for Melbourne, hit enter, ignore this for now, and I have all three number. Right, so imagine that you have to access even more. And instead of you have to go, oh, what level can I go in, what level can I go out, deconstructing it will help you to get through with it quickly. So I get this, right? So now let's put it in current temperature, current humidity, and current wind speed. Right, so is that an ID class? Temper, current humidity, wind speed. Alright, so that should change here. There you go. Alright, now the UV index. What can we do about UV index? Let's go back to API and search for UV index. Alright, so another one. So this is another API for one location. So basically we need to get the Alright, so we need to get the latitude and longitude of the location. Alright, so what can I do? The easiest way for me to do it is I'm just gonna Google what API to get lat and long from CT name. Right, and hopefully you can get something. Open cache. I think someone else used this, so I'm just gonna look at that quickly. So open cache reverse, so lat long to text and forward. So we need to from text to lat and longitude. So that's what we need. Oh, the weather API give it in my response. Oh, cool. So console. Oh yeah, you're correct. Coordinate. Alright, so we're gonna access this. Cool, thanks Charles. So we're gonna do the same thing here. So we're gonna do card here, right? Then we're gonna set lat and long. Right. One thing to remember that if you guys do deconstructing like this, make sure that all the variable name that you leave in here need to be exactly the same with the key that the object has, right? So if you don't do the same thing, it's not gonna work. Okay, so we give one thing. Now let's run another API. So this is the API that we're gonna do. So after we do that, we're gonna send another AJAX in URL of that and method of get. Right, so by default the method is all we get, but just there's no harm to actually add it in. So then I have a function of response, wrong place here. Right, console.log response. Right, so I have lat and long here. So I have a lat and long here already, so I'm gonna make it an variable. I already have an app ID up here, so I'm just gonna use it. Alright, so this should give me the UV, I think. So let's run it and see. Melbourne, hit enter. I'm gonna have that, I'm gonna have that. Alright, so I have a lat, I have a long, I have a value. So let's get it out. So cons, again we deconstructed, right? So this is our response object and we only care about the value here. So we're just gonna say cons value equal to our response. That's it. And we're gonna copy this to here, and our new class is this. So we'll replace it here with the value. Right. So, but yeah, okay. So deconstructing have another trick, not just this, right? Core is not a word. Okay. So you can say, maybe in your case you're gonna say, oh yeah, but what happens if like I'm saying this case, right? You say, yeah, what happens if I have another value up here that contains some number that I want, and now suddenly I have a response that also have a value here, right? So this is gonna be conflict, right? So how can you solve that? So you can do it by the syntax look like you are declaring an object, but it's not really. So what you can do is you can add a colon right here, and you have a name that you want it to be. So saying in here you can say UV index, UV value, right? So let's just quickly console log in here. Value here and UV value here. Right? And because we know that our value is 9.82, so what we should expect from seeing here is should be 100 and 9.82. Right? And I'm just gonna change it here so that we can see. Okay, so if I refresh it, I'm saying Melbourne, hit enter, and see how this 109.82, right? So this what it's actually doing is access the value key, and then it assigning it to a variable name called UV value, right? So it's kind of like access the key, then assigning it to a different object, sorry, different variable. And again, this look exactly like how you declaring an object, and it is, but if you use it in the object deconstructing way, it's behave differently. And I think you just have to get used to it. Alright, so we got that run, and we got this thing running correctly. So I'm good with that. I'm okay. Now let's go to the next part before we go back and try to make the icon here. So let's go to the 5-day forecast one. Right, so the API. Now let's look for the 5-day forecast, and I think this is the one. 5-day forecast. So 5-day forecast. I can search it by city name, 5-day with data every 3 hours, or weather be obtained in JSON format. I want JSON, thank you. Wait, so this is the API call, and I have the country code. Okay. Call API to get city ID. Okay, so I might need a country code. Do I have it from my original API? So I have a name here. Actually, can I do it on longitude and latitude? Yeah, okay. Just gonna use this one. Alright. So this so we're gonna have 3 API, right? One API to get this data, one API to get this data, the UV one, and one API to get the 5-day forecast, right? So the one that run this, like temperature and humidity, it gives us the coordinate. So the one running UV index and the running 5-day forecast need to be afterward, right? But we don't need the UV, the 5-day forecast need to run after the UV, right? Because imagine that if you look at here, alright, so go away. Alright, see how the UV one is actually like sequentially being called afterward, after the weather. Imagine that this is a very long call, right? Not just this is 3 seconds. Actually, not 3 seconds. This is 200 millisecond, right? Imagine that this is being like 10 seconds long, right? And the forecast doesn't require any data that you have inside the UV. And by asking the 5-day forecast to wait 10 seconds for that UV request to be done, it's a bit waste of time. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna run both of them at the same time. So I'm gonna run another API right here. See, not inside the den of the API, the UV, but completely outside. But it run after the initial main API is called. So I'm gonna run it here, and I'm gonna put this API in. Okay, so this is the one, and I would need an app ID. I believe so. So lat would be equal lat, long equal long. Alright, and I would guess it also have a format, unit format. Yeah, okay, so unit equal metric. And units equal metric. Alright, cool. Now I have no idea what's in it, so I'm just gonna console log it. Alright. So refresh, Melbourne. Right, see how both of them running at the same time? Regardless of how long they are, but they're running at the same time, right? So that's good. So even if this thing taking longer than like 200 milliseconds, this thing can run immediately and it's gonna save you time. Right, so now let's have a look. So I have a code, I have a city, which is just sure going in it. I have a list. I guess that's the one I'm looking for. So I'm gonna have this the main look like what I'm needing. So temperature and humidity. Okay. And okay, so it's gonna run every 3 hours, I believe. Yeah, so 12, 15, 30, 18. Okay, so that is our time. I wonder what that is. I think that is on unique timestamp. So if I search for unique timestamp to date and I put that in, that should give me the same time. So let's search. So that's my timestamp. I convert. That give me that. Alright, so that is the timestamp. That's yeah, cool. So I'm gonna use this number instead. Last last time we used moment to handle all the date, right? So now let's use the normal JavaScript date so that you know how painful it is. And honestly, if I have a choice, I would never ever go back to JavaScript date. But you know, alright. So we're gonna get the list, right? So this is um, all of our dates. Sorry, forecast, and we should have to do it here. So we're gonna do 5 days, right? Is it? Oh, it's gonna return 5 days and five each day, 3 hours, so roughly eight. Okay, so eight forecasts per day multiplied by 5 days, 40. Okay, yeah. Right, so I'm gonna access to the list, and because I don't really like this name, so I'm gonna call it forecast list, forecast array, and this is equal to response, right? So again, I access the list, which is here. Yeah, so I access the list here, and I change the name of it to forecast array. So I want my variable name to name forecast array. Right, so forecast array is each of the element is an object. Right, so run a for loop through it. Index equals 0. We'll call it forecast array here, and we're gonna call this forecast. Right, and what do I care about? I care about dt. So I care about dt, which I'm gonna call it timestamp. Then in the main, I care about temperature and humidity. Right, so main, temp, and humidity. Right, so that's all I care about. Now, let's start working with it. So I have a timestamp, right? But again, timestamp here is in, again, we learned that it's in unique timestamp, and we need to convert that into datetime. And the way you do it is using JavaScript date. So, new date, and you put in the number, which is gonna convert you into that. That seems wrong. Did I copy correctly? So that's the one. New dates. But that's on 1970. Huh. Okay, how do you convert unique timestamp? Alright, I thought you just pass it in. Or you have to multiply by. Oh, so it's in millisecond, not second. Alright, so you do that, multiply by 1000. Yep, alright, sounds more like it. Alright, so See how this thing is? We copy this and see this thing is 17 November 12 o'clock, and this thing is the same but in 23, and it's not 12. It's because of the timestamp. So is there a way to do timestamp in this? So Unix timestamp to date in UTC JavaScript. Uh, you know what? I'm not ready for this challenge. Ah. Alright. Let's go back to a moment. Let's go back to something that I love. Sorry, if you guys do feel like you guys want to learn about uh normal date, then I will try to learn it. But for now, I will just go back to my moment. Holy hell. It's been a while, and honestly, I didn't think that it's gonna be this complicated. Alright, so let's convert that timestamp into time, date. Right, so new moment, timestamp, not that. And we're just gonna console log that. Right, so that is our date. You have to multiply by 1000. So that's our date. Right, but again, remember that we're trying to deal with this in UTC, so you can do moment.utc. Oh, sorry, moment, you said that this is in UTC time zone, and it should, I'm just going to do format here so that we easily see it. Save, refresh, invalid days, moment, docs, Unix, timestamp. Yeah, I thought I did it correctly. But let's try that again. So timestamp multiplied by 1000. 1000. That's one extra zero. So we do moment UTC format. Huh. Okay, so maybe it doesn't, you cannot pass it like that. So that's the time. You have to UTC it beforehand. Alright, there you go. Okay, so I format it by the current time zone, then I convert it back into UTC. I don't think I need to use new here. Alright, let's try again. So Melbourne. Yep, alright. So we got that. But what we do care about is only tomorrow, right? So anything that is not today, we should skip it. Right, so query is a day, it's said before. So is before tomorrow. Alright, so in order to know what is tomorrow is, sorry, is, alright, so we need to know what's the end day of today. Right, so cons end of today would be moment, and we're gonna do it in UTC, and we're gonna say end of today. Right, so anything that is before end of today, we're gonna skip it. So if day is same, and you can search that by here, so it's same or before end of today, we're gonna skip it. And how do you skip it? Inside the for loop, you can use a function, sorry, not a function, a command called continue. So what it's gonna do is it's gonna see that you do continue, then it go back to the for loop and running again without running all the thing behind it. So if I do console log here to say day format, you will see that currently all the date from today is still here, right? But if I have continue, now it's still here. If the date is same or before end of today, then continue. Oh, okay, let's run and let's debug and see what's wrong. So here we are, Melbourne. So what is our end of today? End of today is Melbourne UTC. Right. Oh, sorry, not end of today, end of day. That should be more correct. Right, so Melbourne. Here, click search. Yeah, so now only that. Right. But we also doesn't care if it's like in the middle of the day. Like, at least I don't care that. I only care about at the beat. If it's at the start of the day. Right, and the start of the day we can easily check by saying if the hour is 0. So if the day is before this, or if the day, the hour of that day is not 0, then we skip all of that. So you refresh and we run malware, then I should only have this, right? So only from tomorrow, which has the 0, which is the start of the day, and I'm gonna use this only. Right, so what is in each of them? Yeah, oh, not this. I think time and humidity, right? So we're gonna use the way that I showed last time, which is we're gonna use clone. So I'm gonna copy one of this, go outside. So this become forecast day, and I'm gonna delete data here. Class forecast temp. Actually, I'm gonna move this inside. Right, and I'm gonna have another span here. Right, and I'm gonna add an ID here of forecast to be clone. Right, so what I did last time is that I create this, and then I start cloning this, and I append it in here. Right, so the reason why I did that is, first of all, I can do this in HTML, which I can easily control, and I can append a bunch of things that I want into it, right? Quite easy, which I have to use JavaScript. And second of all, I still use JavaScript to easily scale this thing up, so I can use JavaScript to programmatically create a bunch of this without, like, again, use HTML to do one by one, right? So that's like best of both worlds. So how you do it? First of all, I want to clone this, so I need to get this. So I have forecast element would be equal to this, and I'm going to use a function called clone. Ta-da! That's it. But I need to add my details into here, right? So I need to forecast date. So this is clone the item. This is update information. Right, so forecast item. Need to find the forecast date. And I need to put in it moment. Sorry, my date, and I format it as day, month, year. I think that's the correct one. Then I need the forecast time and forecast humidity. So forecast temp would be temp and humidity, like that, right? So I clone it, then I update information. Then I can just add it inside here. Forecast container will be equal to this. Yep. Then append item. Done. So just that. Right, clone the item out, update information, append item. See, so the good thing is this is cleaner because you don't have to do a lot of like create element and append thing. And this is better because this is also better than you do everything in JavaScript, because this is scalable. You are running a for loop and you're writing this code only once. So let's run it and have a look. Right, 5 of them, cool. But see how this thing is still here. So what I need to do is I need to hide this, right? So by hiding it, I'm gonna add a style in it. To be display none. Right, and if I do it, the problem is the rest of them is also display none, because the rest of them have the same ID. And remember that we do set that like you cannot have the same ID in the same document. That's a good thing to follow. No, sorry, that must be followed, but sometimes browsers just love you and they still allow you to have multiple IDs, similar ID on the same page, but that should not be something that you should follow. So what you need to do in this one is after you clone, you need to remove that attribute. You need to remove the ID so that now this thing is not something to be cloned anymore. This is like a real thing. So you do that by remove attribute of ID. And see, now that thing is empty, but this thing is now up here. Cool. Very cool. Alright, and because we can search multiple times, so let's make sure that we clean the empty, I think the function empty. We clear this before we do the new one, because if we don't, then it's gonna be adding it, right? And we don't want that. So Melbourne, Sydney, right? So it's clearing it and then update the new one. Oh, I need to change the name of that too. City name. Afterward. Oh, wrong one. That. Alright, and that can have a font transform. capitalize, no, font, there's a font capitalize something. How do I do it? Text transform, not font transform, text transform. So you can do text transform, and you can do capitalize here, so it always make it like that. So if I search for Ho Chi Minh City, and if I do it very bad, Ho Chi Minh, it should always also do that. Okay, so it might not know what Ho Chi Minh is, which is sad. Okay. So let's do a bit more on this, but I will come back to this later. Alright, so the thing with this is seeing how this thing is kind of instant, right? But imagine that when you run this, you have to wait for a while before it's update. So what I want to do now is when you start the search, it's like the whole thing should kind of fade out, and then when it's done, it's fade in. So let's try something like that, right? So I have the whole main content, right? And I want all of that to fade out. So you can do main content to fade out. And what's gonna do is something like this. See how it's fading out? Right? So the fade out thing, and because this is because it's running so fast. So if you have the fade out here, and fade out taking time, right? Because it's an animation, it takes some time. And if I do a fade in somewhere in here, then it might not done fading out, and then it run the Ajax, and then it fading in again. It's gonna create kind of a mess. So say only run the Ajax after you fading out. So what you can do is go to jQuery, look for fade out function, and it says the duration and complete. So default would be 400, and complete would be what you want to do afterward. So I'm gonna say fade out for 400 milliseconds, and after that, start running Ajax. I think all of this. No, this. Yeah. Alright. Right. Then remember that we're running on. We only want to fade in when both of these API is complete, right? And because we're running them separately, we don't know which one is completing. Like this one will not know whether this has complete or not, and again this one will not know whether this has complete or not. So I'm gonna create a fade in function here, right? So function, and I would say number of complete API is 0 because at the beginning both of them are not complete. The total API that we run is 2, right? 2 API, and I'm say fading in, check for fade in, right? This would check if completed API is equal to total API. Only then my main content will fade in, not out, in, right? And I'm gonna run it in each of the completion. So in here, when I'm done, I'm gonna say I have complete one API, and let's check for fade in. And this one is the same thing, right? So in here, I'm say I have complete another API. Let's check for fade in, right? And this is the result. I have this at the beginning. I might want to hide it altogether, but for now, just leave it there. When I hit Melbourne, it's hidden, then show up again when both of them are complete. Right, so I'm going to move this inside too, so that you don't see that flashing at the beginning. Right, so Melbourne. Right, I need to change that again. CC name. Sidebar main contain current condition. Right. So, right. And if I do Sydney, it's gonna go something like that, right? So, why do I need this? Right. So the reason why I need this is because I run two API at the same time, and none of that know when the other is complete. This is what we call a racing condition, because you have two of the hosts running at the same time, and no one knows, like, each of them just doesn't care about the other. It just keep running until it's finished, right? And we don't care which one finishes first. What we care about is what we're gonna do when both of them are finished. And later on, when you learn on, you're gonna learn a lot more about promise, about how you can control this better. JavaScript does have better way of doing this, but for now, let's just go with something simple. Whenever you complete an API, you make sure that you mark it and say, hey, I have completed this. Have the other one has completed it. If everything has complete, which is the complete API equal total API, then you say just do whatever it is, what you want to do after everything is done, right? And that's how you get this thing. Also, if you search this, then it's show up. Huh. Right. So I will not do the copy bit because I think you guys already know how to do it. But instead, I want to do another thing. So see how if I do this, instead of showing me anything, it's actually returning this, right? And what is this? This is an API error. Right, so if you look at here, you can see that this has returned us an error. Right, and like imagine that you go to the website and something went wrong. You're not gonna go right click and inspect and look at network and say, yeah, okay, there's an error here. Oh, there's an error here. Oh, I know why my website doesn't work, right? You are kind of expecting an error show up, right? So let's do that. Let's say when there's something wrong with the API, we show them an error. So instead of having them waiting for it, we show them, hey, something wrong. Go try again. Hey, something wrong. Let's try something later on, right? So let's do something like that. So for the, I think for the ease of it, let's just do an alert, right? So show an alert, say, hey, something went wrong. Right, so how do we do it? So remember the hx function, and that's where we're gonna start. So hx, we always use 10, right? So dot 10. But if you see here, you will see that dot 10 actually taking two functions, right? It's taking the done and the fail, right? So the done, normally we just deal with this, right? The done is what happened when a success, right? We have never actually touched about the fail. So what happened if it's not going well? And today let's do that. So I'm gonna create another function saying alert user fail API, right? And this is very simple function saying we're gonna alert, hey, something went wrong with the API, please try again later, right? Very simple. And we're gonna put this underneath all of the API that we want to run. So saying this is hx, we have one function here, and we're gonna have another function here, right? So this is where the fail function is, right? So I'm just gonna put this, alert the user if the API fail, alert the user that it failed. And the same thing, I'm gonna put it in here. So if this API fail, alert the user that it failed. And also I'm gonna put it in here. If the forecast fail, alert the user that it failed. Right? So if I refresh this, and we both know that if I do Ho Chi Minh, it's gonna fail because it doesn't know what it is. But now, instead of showing empty page, it should alert me and say, hey, something went wrong, right? So this is something that you guys need to focus on when you guys develop a website. So not always the good path, always have to check for the very worst scenario, right? So API failing, no internet, the RAM has, like, your website doesn't have enough resource of the computer to run. What's happened then? So all of that, because the user would not be expected to open this development tool and then look and then see what's wrong, right? They expect to have some UI to show up, and this is a very simple case, right? You can just show that. Like, I mean, this is okay to show, I guess, depending on how your community like it, right? But it at least it show the user that, hey, something went wrong. Try again, right? And if you do Ho Chi Minh City again, now it show up. So when it's running correctly, it worked. When it doesn't run correctly, at least it doesn't fail, right? It tell you that something went wrong. Cool. All right. So, let's see what else do I want to focus on. I think local start is fine. I don't think you might want that. Hardcore sound parameter. Well, functional. Yes, sure. All right. The icon thing is simple. I'm not gonna touch it for now. All right. Anything else that you guys want me to cover on this one? If not, then I'm gonna move to some other part. Anyone? Okay, while we're waiting for it, I'm just gonna commit this. So, complete HTML page. Yes. Okay. Anyone? No. Yes. Yes. No. Alright. So Cynthia asks flex basis. What is so flex basis? What is different between 999 and 1? So is flex okay? Is flex basis a key, or is flex basis is what you say that this is the basic of flex? Right. Okay. So let's talk about why I keep using 999. Okay. So the 999 is actually a hack that you guys will be. I think if you do flex enough, you guys gonna go through it sometime online. But if you search for flex hack 999, and it's gonna have something like this. But let's tell you what it is, right? So the problem that I was trying to solve before is my content, my container, like this main content, doesn't fit the whole page, right? So by having flex row 999, I make it to go the whole page. But then how does it actually work? So flex row works something similar to this. So if I have another flex row here, what you're gonna see is actually split them halfway, right? So the way it works is that the parent, which is this one, is gonna come down and give each of the children the size of the content. Right? So if I turn up flex row here and I turn up flex row here, you'll say that this is the content, this is the size that required to build up the content of each of the element, right? So that can only need that, and this only need this, right? So when you add flex row into it, what it actually does is to say, hey, parent, do you have any extra space? And when I say extra space, I mean space that doesn't have anything. So this is child 1, this is child 2, this is parent. So from here to here is an empty space, right? So when I add flex row, this child 2 is going to ask the parent, say, hey parent, do you have any empty space? If you have, please distribute to me by this ratio, right? And what is the ratio? the ratio is going to be calculated by all the flex row of the children. So if I have a flex row here of 999, and I think by default flex row is 1, I believe, or 0. I think by default is 0. Right, so the way where it is, it's gonna say flex row 999 plus flex row 0. So the total is 999. Actually, I'm gonna do 10,000, so it's easiest for me to speak. Alright, 10,000 plus 0 become 10,000, right? And give me the ratio of 10,000 over 10,000, right? So if we speak in English term, it's gonna be give me all the space that you currently have, all the empty space that you currently have to me, right? So allow me to grow as much as all your empty space. And if I increase this a bit up, right, you're gonna slowly see that this thing is actually expanding. And the reason, because if I say 500 here, the ratio, the number of flex row now would be 500 plus 10,000 would be 10,500, and the empty space that we see before of the parent will be divided for the child 2 with the ratio of 10,000 over 10,500, and the sidebar, the children 1, of the ratio 500 over 10,500, right? So by not giving the child 1 any flex row, which means flex row 0, and give this a very big number, I am saying that the parent give all the empty space to this one, meaning allow this one to expand as much as it can. Like it will fit the parent. Does that explain to you, Cynthia? Cool. Alright. So, anything else you guys want to ask? Nope. Alright, cool. So I will end this right here. And we're gonna continue to something else. Alright. Not that. Okay, so